Sage Wanderer here, and welcome to my van down by the river. And this is the story of the old Marine's deathbed confession. Do do do. So if you watch this channel much, you know that I refer to my dad as the old Marine, because once a Marine, always a Marine. And although my dad would go on to become a hellfire and brimstone preacher, Pentecostal preacher, when he started out life, it was in the United States Marine Corps. In fact, the United States Marine Corps believed my dad to be 18 years old when he actually pulled a minor con to change some records around, and he was actually only 17. But he convinced the United States Marine Corps that he was 18 years old. And so he joined the Marines at 17. It really wasn't an uncommon thing back then. They didn't have computers, and pretty much nobody had birth certificates. Everyone was born at home. So he joins the Marines, and they put him in basic training. And he grew up with a rifle in his hand. You know, my dad grew up being able to shoot the eyes off a gnat. If you didn't, you couldn't survive in rural Arkansas and Oklahoma, the Cherokee Strip, you know, unless you knew how to hunt and fish. That was a major part of feeding yourself during the Great Depression, for sure. And so, you know, he was handy with a rifle already. And it come to the day where he finally got to shoot the M1 Garand he'd been issued. And he was going to get to shoot it for the very first time. And they gave him a full stripper clip of ammunition. And they'd been teaching him how to handle this gun and teaching him the insides and outs of it. And of course, he's on a firing line with a bunch of other recruits. And there is a small arms rifle instructor who's instructing them all and running the range. Now, the range, I think they were shooting either 500 or even 1,000 yards away on pretty large targets. And at the end of the range was a pit with people in it, and they would run the targets up and down. They were in a bulletproof pit, and they would run these targets up and down and score them. And there was a wired intercom that connected to the where the shooting line was, so they could score the targets and know who could shoot and who couldn't. And they had them all laid out there ready to fire. And the instructor told them all, you may fire one round. And everyone was getting lined up and centered. And when you're laying prone, that's flat on your stomach. It's a newbie mistake to have your butt up in the air. Well, the old Marine kind of had what we might call today a bubble butt. And he didn't feel like his butt was sticking up at all. He just has a little bit bigger butt than ordinary folks. Or at least it was rounded back in the day, I suppose, is what he's trying to say. He was in shape, you know, running the mountains, running the woods. And he'd worked as a logger a little bit before that. But at any rate, yeah, this Marine rifle instructor thinks his butt's too far up in the air, and he runs up and jumps right on his back and shoves his butt down with his boot heel and said, "Get down on the ground, Marine or recruit," and because you're not a Marine yet till you get out of basic. So anyway, that just makes my dad mad. He's like so angry. He wants to jump up and just clean this guy's clock. Like, you didn't lay hands on him. He had a temper, and man, anybody touched him did not survive the interaction. He'd lay you out. He'd knock you out. He'd just jump you. It was just, he wasn't putting up with it. And so he was infuriated that this drill instructor had jumped on his back. And so he was waiting with all the other recruits to fire, and they're getting the speech. You'll fire one round and one round only. Take a deep breath. Take the slack out, squeeze the trigger, fire, and fire. And so you hear everybody fire, except the old Marine fired the entire clip in rapid fire. Bop, 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 bop. 8 shots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 shots. And, well, that just sets off the DI. He's just like, no way, no way. And, jerks him up. What are you thinking? What are you thinking? I told you one round and one round only. And he's just reading him the riot act. He's giving him the Sergeant Carter routine. Gomer Pyle reference there. But the speaker behind him says, like, yeah, I forget what they call it when they have a perfect score. So we'll just call it perfect score. The Marine called it something else. But all in, or maybe something like that. But it indicated that all 8 shots that he'd fired on his lane, because they gave the lane number, were all in. And it just stopped the drill instructor in his tracks. He was like, "What? That can't be right." He runs over to the intercom. "Rescore that target. That cannot be right. He fired those in rapid succession." And rapid fire. And so, the moment, pause, comes back on. "Oh, it was a perfect score. They were all in the 10 ring. Every round was in the 10 ring." And so he looks to the old Marine and he says, "Hey, you know, is that something you just got lucky at? Can you do that all the time? You shoot like that all the time, or just when you're mad?" And he goes, "Well, I shoot better when I'm mad, but I can shoot good all the time." And he said, "You think you could do that again?" He goes, "I could do that again all day long." And he said, you think you can teach other people to do what you do? Do you think you can teach other people to shoot like that?" And he goes, "Oh, I know I can. I've taught lots of people to shoot just like that." And he scribbles something down on a piece of paper and gives it to him, and he goes, "Go see your CO right now." And they immediately took him and put him into rifle instructor training program. Right, he didn't even get to finish basic training. He technically finished it because they made it part of the training program. They finished his basic training in a fast-tracked way while moving him through the training program. And not long after his basic crew came out of basic training, he was already out on the firing line teaching other people how to shoot. They needed people during the Korean War who could train people. Now, the old Marine talked a lot about his time in the Marine Corps, but it was all about his time at Camp Pendleton, which was only the first couple of years of his career in the Marine Corps. The rest of the time, he was stationed in Tokyo, Japan, the jumping off point for much of the conflict in the Asian theater. So, he didn't talk to me at all during his life about his time in Tokyo. He talked about the culture. He talked about what it was like existing in Tokyo in an occupied, country where the natives kind of were either trying to rip you off or kill you, because they were still sore from losing the World War II, And anyhow, he talked about that, but he never talked about his job at all. And so, to his deathbed confession, the old Marine passed away in 2015 from hardening of the arteries, and it was a long road to get there, which involved many strokes, and several of them consecutively. It took away his ability to walk and his ability to see. And so before he had the big one, which kind of put him into his final state of not really being with us anymore, being here but not really, right before that, he was in the hospital from a stroke. And he called me and my mother up there, and he had a time of deathbed confessions. Now, according to my mom, he tried to confess having affairs, and she didn't want to hear it and told him to shut up and didn't want to hear it and stormed out. And when he called me in, I kind of figured he was going to confess those things to me, which I didn't really need to hear. Plus, I already knew it. I'm pretty perceptive. I kind of knew what the old Marine was up to his whole life when it came to that sort of thing. However, it wasn't what he was going to confess to me. He wanted to confess something to me, and it was very strange, and here, I'll tell you what he said. He says, "Son, you will never have to worry about anything. You're going to be taken care of." And I chuckled, and I said, "What, you got a pile of money you're hiding somewhere?" Because I knew, he pretty much went out of this world with very little. And he said, no, I'm not talking about what I've got. I'm just saying that you're going to be protected. And I said, okay, so, God protects me. I know that. You're right. Because I figure he's being a preacher at this moment. But really, he's being the old Marine at this moment. And he says, no, you don't understand. You'll never go without. You'll never be hungry. Your bills will never go unpaid. No one will ever threaten you. You will never be targeted. No one will ever bully you. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, son, I have something to confess to you that I didn't tell you about my job when I was stationed in Tokyo. He said, quite frequently, they would come amongst those of us who were very good at the art of killing. And they would ask for volunteers to go out and do night raids and missions. He said, I volunteered for these, and they were all considered suicide missions. And So I already knew that to be considered a suicide mission, you have to have less than a 50-50 chance of survival. And some suicide missions have like almost no chance for survival. And according to the old Marine, if you volunteer for one of these things, and you don't have to, you're not under orders, and they ask for volunteers and you step up for them, if they're bad enough, if they're hairy enough, especially if they're kind of covert and mildly illegal, so that you know these night raids he confessed to going to were not, I repeat, not on the Korean Peninsula. They were in other hot zones in Asia that would soon break out into other conflicts, communist activities that were being tracked in places that would go on to be notorious, like Cambodia and Vietnam and Laos. So these were the places that he was interacting and training. His job was training covert armies in the jungle to fight communists. So training militias, apparently, and he would also go with them on their night raids. And this was all as part of this confession. And he said to me, because I did this, they promised me that they would take care of my children. And I chuckled and I said, well, Dad, I think that's too late for that. I'm a grown man, you know. I got children of my own. What do you mean? He goes, no, it wasn't just for while they were children, that they would always, for the rest of their days until they died, my children would be protected and watched over by the United States Marine Corps and the government of the United States. The United States government and the United States Marine Corps promised me, it was a condition, that if I did these things for them, they would take care of you. I still don't know what to think of that. I wouldn't call him a liar. I accepted it, like I accept all things I consider a blessing. But it also might explain why sometimes I believe that I might be watched, that I might be surveilled, that I might be under scrutiny. Sometimes I feel like I get bailed out of things when I was about to handle them. I was about to handle them, and then they just handle themselves. People have called me the luckiest man on earth. And I have always, and still do, and will to the day I die, give credit to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and all of the prayers of the saints that have gone out for me. For whatever reason, I'm protected, and I know that, because some things are just supernatural. But then there's other things that are more physical that makes you wonder. Like one time when I was down to my last dollar, I just found a mint roll of U.S. Silver Eagle 100%, or 99.999% pure Silver Eagle rounds. I was worth about $400 at the time. A mint round. I think is there 12 in a mint round or 20? It's a stack of silver like that, just rolling around in my trunk. I was down to my last dollar. I was digging in there for change to get gas, to get to a pawn shop, to hawk some jewelry that I didn't want anymore, that I needed so I could eat and feed my kids. It's like was at the lowest point in my life. And there just happens to be, now, I have owned silver. Trust me, I took meticulous care, and I was aware of every roll of that, and it had been long since gone because I was going through a divorce, and that was what I spent first to set my house up. And there's no way I missed a roll. It was just like I picked up, and there it was. Could be a coincidence. Other times, $500 just appears in my bank account. I can't tell you where it's from. No one has access to direct deposit it. I check all the records. There's no bank records of the transaction. My balance just changes without an addendum as to why. Could be the government. It's always when I'm broke. It's always when I'm broke. And I've talked about how bad things tend to happen to people who do bad things to me. It's people that victimize me. I have nothing to do with it. I chalk it up to God, and I say that God is, what is it? Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, I will repay. So I just give it to God because I figure he can punish him better than I can. But then maybe he's using some folks in the government and they're helping. I don't know. But it leads me to a discussion that I'm going to have in another video. So I'm going to take this moment to kind of promote my next video, which is going to be about gang stalking. And I've been studying gang stalking. Several of my viewers claim to be victims of gang stalking. I've had lots of requests for gang stalking. I'm not going to put it on Coffee Talk because after watching some videos about it myself and doing some research, I believe to some degree I've been a victim of this. And maybe it has to do with what happened with the old Marine, and maybe they're just looking out for me, and this is their way of watching and making sure I'm taken care of. Maybe it's like Big Brother, if Big Brother was a good Big Brother. You know? I don't feel menaced. I don't feel like they're out to get me. I do feel like, we'll do, as a part of this gang stalking video, will also be part confession of how I feel like some of the things that I'm hearing people talk about with gang stalking is things I've just accepted about my life and how I live, and that I feel like there is unseen watchers, unseen surveillance going on with me, because sometimes I can see it and it's not so unseen, and no matter how good you are at your job, sooner or later you're going to drop the ball and I'm going to catch you watching me. It's just a matter of odds. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed the story of the old Marine and his deathbed confession. I have one last thing to add. So if you thought the video was over and you tuned out, you missed the nugget. Ha ha ha. So here's the final nugget. The old man would never talk about any of the killings that happened when he was on those night raids. And trust me, they happened. I know they happened. I was there for his fever-ridden hallucinations, which very much included combat in detail. The kind of detail that only people who have served can conjure up, especially in a fevered fit. So I know for a fact that those things happened. But he would never talk about them. But he did confess, as a part of this confession, his final confession, was that he had actually killed another service member in his time over there, and it was not friendly fire. See, he was supposed to leave out on a hardship discharge because his mother had gotten put into the sanitarium for her tuberculosis, and he had to come home and take care of his 6 younger brothers and sisters. So, he got the hardship discharge, and it was the night before, and he was getting drunk in a Tokyo bar, and he went into the restroom. This bar was on the 4th floor of an old warehouse building, and it had these big windows like you would see in old brick buildings, where they're sometimes 20 or 30 feet wide, and they're made up of these little squares and held together with all of these little window pieces, little wooden frames. So it's like a giant window made up of smaller windows. And he was in the bathroom stall when a 6'4" sailor pushed himself into the bathroom stall, started trying to hit him, and he thought take his wallet, but he realized that it was an attempt at raping him, that he was about to get raped by a much bigger man. And he went ballistic on this guy, and he beat the crap out of him till he was stumbling around and he had control of the much bigger man, and then he shoved him out the 4th-story window, and he fell to the man fell to his death. In that moment, the Marine decided he needed to get the heck out of Dodge, and I probably would have never been born had he not made this decision, that the best thing he could do was to leave. Even though he had orders that had released him, he was off, he was done, he was expected, he was considered in transit already. But his flight did not leave, his scheduled flight that were associated with his orders did not leave for San Diego or Hawaii. He was going to Hawaii. Honolulu was not till the next morning. But he decided that getting out of Tokyo right now was extremely important. So he slipped out the back jack, made his way to the airstrip, and asked around until he found a flight that was headed to Honolulu. He showed them his orders that would give him the right to go to Honolulu, and said he was unable to sleep and couldn't wait till the morning flight, was ready to go, and just wanted to get on the way to Honolulu. And they said, sure, no problem, jump in. So he left on an unregistered, recorded flight, and they lost track of him till he ended up reporting back in San Diego. But they weren't really looking for him because nobody knew who threw that sailor out of that window but him and the guy that did it to him. So it was an unsolved mystery, but had he stuck around, it would have been potentially hazardous for his future. So yeah, that was the one that bothered him. The killings that happened in combat, those night raids, which he did give me some details, which I won't go into. There's no reason to. Nobody wants to hear that, really. But some of those affected him, but not really, because that was the enemy, and that was his job, was to kill the enemy. Throwing that sailor out the window haunted him till the day he died. All right, so till next time, thanks for watching.